Welcome. My name is Lauren Bailey. I'm the founder and president of Girls Club, Factor 8 in the Sales Bar. I'm surrounded by really intelligent, fabulous people who are going to talk about how we recruit, retain, and promote more women. Now, we're really specific about women in sales, but that's not all we're talking about. We're going to go wide. We're talking about women in general. We're talking about diversity in general. We all want to get better at this, but it's hard to know exactly what I can do. So we're going to look at this from a lot of different viewpoints. I have a killer panel that I'm going to introduce in just 1 second. Here we go. We've got more people trickling in. Does anybody else do this? My panelists, when I see these numbers go up, I feel like I'm in Vegas, right? Remember like where you hit it and you're like, how many am I about to win? What is this? The number keeps going up. I get so excited that people are excited about this topic with us. So thank you. Thank you for joining us, and my panelists as well. All right, I'm going to jump in. We're going to introduce my panel in about 30 seconds, and you're going to get your very first tip in about 45 seconds. Time me. Here we go. This discussion is brought to you by Girls Club. If you haven't heard of us before, Girls Club's my passion project, and our mission is to change the face of sales leadership by helping more women get promoted into the ranks of sales leadership. This is our 3rd year in business. We're running our 3rd cohort of women getting certified, and Stephanie, wave over there, is one of our proteges. I update this slide every time I show it. These are some of the logos involved in this generation, and I think even since I've written the slide, we're at like 62 promotions and counting, so we're extremely proud of that. Our webinar is brought to you and everybody watching this for years to come by our amazing Girls Club sponsors, Iterable, Chorus, and Ambition. These companies care about our mission. They also care a lot about sales results and know that empowering women is a smart strategy to get there. By the way, all 3 in our top 25, in fact, the top 10 of our top 25 companies, and they also just have great solutions. Great companies, great solutions, great people, all things being equal, pick one of these. Are we ready, panelists? We got this. All right, that's the nod. All right, we're gonna start with Erica. Give us the wave, Erica, say hello.
Hello.
Excellent. I have to wear reading glasses to introduce you. There's a lot going on with this fabulous woman. Erica is the SVP of People Operations at KnowBe4. KnowBe4, by the way, #1 on Girls Club Top 25 list. KnowBe4 is the world's largest integrated platform for security awareness training and simulated phishing. Under her leadership, get this, People Operations grew from 10 people to over 50. They're in 11 countries, 6 continents, and took the top spot for our top 25 companies where women want to work. She's most well known for her radical transparency and her people-centric approach to HR. She's going to give us some of the best practice point of view. What can your companies do to implement? Radical transparency, I love, Erica. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're very proud of our radical transparency and radical honesty, which comes across very blunt sometimes. So people be prepared.
Be ready. Oh my God, we're going to be friends. Do your friends tell you? Do your friends tell you have no filter? Because that's what they tell me.
Yes, actually, all the time. Well, and my coworkers tell me that.
I feel you. That's really good. I love it. Okay, next I'm going to introduce Rocky. I'm going slightly out of order. Let me actually go in order. Wouldn't that be interesting? Stephanie, we're going to do you next. I got so excited to introduce Rocky. Stephanie Griffin is an enterprise account executive, easy for me to say, at Iterable. She is one of our proteges this year. Iterable took our #6 top spot in the top 25. Stephanie's working towards her certification and management promotion. She's already been promoted several times in the company. She co-leads the Iterable Women's Network with over 100 female identifying members, and is designed to create space for members to share experiences, promote awareness, and professional growth. She's going to give us the employee point of view. So many of you listening to this, watching this, reading about it afterwards are saying, I want my company to be better. How do I do it? And how do I influence from where I am? And boy, has Stephanie done it. In fact, I hear that this entire webinar idea was yours, Stephanie. Am I wrong?
And that may be true, Lauren.
I love it. We're blaming you, no matter how it goes. All right. Now, my friend Rocky. Hi. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be here.
I'm really happy you're here. Rocky is the director of IBM Global Digital Sales Development. Now, you see, this is why I should let people do their own introductions because I'm stumbling. Rocky manages the team that's responsible for the strategy, implementation, and revenue of the global digital sales development function. Rocky has a strong passion for advancing women in sales and millennials in business, regularly sharing her thoughts on these topics, speaking at conferences, writing in publications, member of the Forbes Business Development Council. Nobody knows the subject better and has written about it in more places in a polished, gorgeous format than Rocky. So she's going to give us the expert point of view, right? We're going to talk about what real companies are doing, and then we're going to go to Rocky and say, what's everybody else doing, and what's the world doing, and what's everybody think of that? So Rocky, if you don't have a stat for it, honey, just make it up. We'll believe you.
Got it.
Good. Sean and I met just today, and I am really, really excited to learn about Sean's company. Sean, will you come off mute and pronounce your last name? Because I haven't even gotten sales development correct before. There's no chance I'm getting this right.
It is Sean Hathiramani, and I am so thrilled to be here in such inspiring company.
It's so cool. Check this out, you guys. Flock J was founded to empower job seekers from non-traditional and underrepresented backgrounds with the skills and support needed to launch sales careers in tech. Hello, everybody looking to hire more diversity? Sean's the answer. It's Flock J. As CEO, Sean's responsible for delivering on the company's mission to help build a more just world where everyone can achieve the promise of upward mobility. Sean himself is a first-generation family, and believe me, he walks the talk. This is the company we've all been searching for, you guys, and he's going to give us the hiring point of view. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is fantastic. All right, cool. So what I want to cover next is the fact that Sean's our lone male. I just wanted to shout out a few other fabulous men. At Girls Club, we love allies. I know it sounds like women only, but we have tons of men involved in Girls Club. And the men that we're spotlighting on this panel, which you can't see right now, can you guys? We're not, here we go. Here my slides are catching up. Technical difficulties are now done. Take a look at these fabulous male allies from companies like Sendoso and Ralph and CDW and my friends at BombBomb. These are men that in the last 6 months have reached out to me to say, how can I hire more women? How can I retain? How can I promote? They mentor for us in Girls Club. My buddy Brian at CDW found at a recent company there wasn't pay equity and immediately fixed it. I just want to shout out the men who are doing it wonderfully. We thank you, and let these faces represent all of you that are on our call today. Okay, we're here because of our top 25. This year, for the first year, we published top 25 companies where women want to work. By the way, if you're watching this, you can get in on an early nomination and voting, which is really exciting. Okay, it's open to you first. This is the link. I think Amy's even going to chat the link in so that everybody has a chance to do that. Go look at the companies who won and get an early nomination for your company for this year. We're pretty darn excited about that. And speaking of which, take a look at our top 25 winners. If you're watching this webinar because you wish your company did this better and you're thinking about getting a new JOB, start here, okay? Go to wearegirlsclub.com/25 and look at all of these companies. Look at what people have said about these companies. Almost all of them are hiring today. Woohoo! So speaking of which, 2 of the companies taking the top spots are represented here by Erica and Stephanie. Ladies, first question goes to you. Were you surprised to win?
I can go first, Erica, if that works.
Totally. I was finding the mouse that was eluding me. So there we go.
I really appreciate, I appreciate that you share the technical difficulties.
Yeah,
You realize I was showing one slide for like the first 4 minutes. Okay. Stephanie, was it a surprise?
So we were not surprised to make it, but we were really excited to get number 6. We know that Iterable is a great place to work. There's so much opportunity for people in sales, for people in all departments. We've won a lot of different awards, like best companies to work in Colorado and in San Francisco, and career-changing
Oh,
companies.
so you're used to this. You just rack up the awards.
Yeah, but we are always looking to add to the culture, and we really want women to know about us and about how great Iterable is. We really want to shout that out throughout like social and letting everyone else know about it. So we were very excited for that number 6
Good.
spot.
That's good. Well, and it takes that kind of excitement because as we got these votes, right? They were nominated by Women and Girls Club. Then we went further into our overall network for more nominations. And we looked at number of votes. So not just quantity, but also quality, what people were saying. And we did some double checking to make sure we weren't just stuffing the ballot box with 200 votes that were all men. And that did happen a few times. Erica, how about you? You took top spot. Surprised?
We did. I was not surprised either. We have done very well with best places to work, and even on a national scale this year, we got some of the best places to work. But what I love about this is it was voted on. Any award where you're voted on by people, I think it makes a huge difference. Not that a lot of them that you're not voted on, but it always speaks to me when I find out that what our employees and those who are allies to our company are saying about us, that makes a huge difference. It
Totally
just
agree.
does. And it was a real good acknowledgement that we're on the path and we're doing the right things, and we just have to continue to strengthen and expand those.
That's so good. That's really good. So it's a good second question, right? Like, what do you think you're doing? What are the top things that you're doing that inspire so many hundreds to vote for you? Erica, you go first this time.
Okay, so we have we have employee relations groups that are made up of our employees. So we do have a women in technology group that's actually spearheaded by one of our VPs over sales. That's a member of Girls Club. Her name is Brittany. Shout out to Brittany.
Yay.
And we also have our parents ERG group that we have for all the parents that we call our employees no-sters. We also do very frequent internal promotions. We have about a 25% internal promotion rate.
That's phenomenal.
Yes. And we're very proud of that because we want to build people up so they can continue to grow and expand, even if they change the direction that they're doing. Maybe they're in one area and want to move to another area. We have a person dedicated to the careers at KnowBe4. We call him Career Dave. And he is mapped out every area of the company and how you start from the bottom all the way to the very top and how you get there. And he has constant programs and engagements and things like that you can do to continue to grow. So if you want to be at that next level, he shows you exactly how to do it all the way through the interview process, all the way up.
Okay, so hang on one second. We gotta dive into this. This is good.
Okay.
So for everybody at home writing all these notes, we're just gonna pause for a second. Career Dave. If you're not a big enough company to have a Career Dave, Rocky, I'm gonna come to you because I've heard you speak before about that. It's not always a career ladder, it's a career jungle gym. The idea of having mobility upward in a company that isn't on one path. Any tips to share with people if they're not big enough to have a Career Dave?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, gone are the days where you kind of have a traditional linear career path. Back in the day, I think about kind of even my parents, you start as a salesperson, then you become a sales manager, then a VP of sales, maybe then a CRO. There isn't that path anymore. And I think the beauty of sales is that it does allow for you to have such transferable and marketable skills. So if you don't have a Career Dave, I think the question is just how do you kind of create your own portfolio career and leverage all of the tangible skills that you can get within sales? That's the beauty of it. Regardless of what you want to do next, you're always going to be selling. Whether you're convincing someone to go on a vacation with you or to go on a date with you or whatever it might be. I mean, everything in life is sales. So I think it's important to have some of that foundational growth, I guess, as part of your career development.
I love that. So leaders out there, especially sales leaders listening to this, start talking about how these skills will help people move into all different areas of the company. It's going to keep them at the company. It's going to help them feel invested in. It's going to help you retain the diversity who are maybe feeling skipped over or passed over. I know I hear that a lot from the Women and Girls Club. Like, it just seems like, oh, sure, I don't even have a chance for that promotion. if we're always talking about different ways and actions that we can take to move in other directions, that's going to help. I love getting the nod because it's like verification from you, Sean. I'm going to come to you in a second. Let me first go back to Stephanie. We're going to have lots more time to share tips. What do you think your company did to get so many people voting?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. We have a culture of transparency. Our core values are balance and growth mindset. And we really walk the walk when it comes to those values. And I'll give you two quick examples. We have an internal mentorship program that anyone can participate in. I have mentors that I've been meeting with for the last 3 years, and they've watched my career progress. And then we've really done a lot to address not only like who you are as an employee, but who you are as a person when it comes to our benefits. So we have a learning and development budget. Every quarter you can invest in like acupuncture, books, conferences. We recently got fertility benefits approved by the leadership team as part of our women's group.
Wow.
And then tomorrow we have our balance day. So the first Friday of every month, everyone's off Slack, no one's working, and it's just time to go and spend with your family and to do the things that you really like. So it's really about walking the walk when it comes to those core values of balance.
Oh, there's so many good things in there to unpack. 1 day a month on the company to go have a life is massive.
Mhm.
My CRO, Ted Martin, just recently started a no Slack day for his revenue team. They're not even off. It's just leave me the heck alone. Let me get some work done, because that's the new line at the desk and it's constant for leaders, right? But I love this learning and development budget. I mean, I've been on that soapbox for a decade, right? We have like 10x tools budget than we have for development budget. And the vast majority of companies still don't have a line item training and development budget per employee, right? I'll give them 20 tools, but train them? What? And we wonder why, right? We're having trouble hiring and retaining people. But Stephanie, yours sounded like it went even further. It wasn't just go take corporate training. It was anything you want for development, including acupuncture, or is that something different?
Anything you want. I'm pretty sure there's like maybe like 1 or 2 rules, but it's anything that is going to enrich you as a person or as an individual. And really the goal is to get people to use the time like a tomorrow, like a balance day, to go and do different things to invest in yourself.
That's really, really cool. I love it. My mind straight went to like the 1 or 2 things on the rule list. Like, can you imagine leaders writing that policy? That would be a little tough. All right. This is really cool. All right. So I want to invite Sean to jump in, and then Rocky, and then a few more things, right? What else are companies doing let's focus on getting people to apply for a while, right? Like, what are companies doing to attract women to them? Sean.
Sure. So one of the things we believe here at Flock is you can't be what you can't see. And I think both Stephanie and Erica highlighted really important examples of why and how we can elevate women into leadership positions within our companies. So if you want women to apply to your company, then elevate women within your company. It's pretty straightforward. And there's a lot that we can do there. It's shouting from the rooftop successes of folks across your company and those promotions and normalizing that kind of success. And that just starts a virtuous cycle where then you start to have the kinds of supportive policies and programs that we've talked about. Stephanie, I love hearing about Balance Day. At Flockshare, we have Creative Fridays. And that similarly is a Friday a month where we try to get from a place of doing to a place of being, and really reconnecting with why we show up to work every day, and the thing that grounds us at home and whatever that creative source of energy is.
Give us another example of that. Right?
What's
like a creative day. How is that different than Balance Day? And is it like a company or is it an individual pick?
Yeah, so we basically encourage folks to connect with whether it's a hobby or a passion project or a side project completely aside from work, to go out and actually do that photography walk you wanted to do, or actually attend that event that you wanted to. And that sort of speaks to the holistic nature of development that I think Stephanie was touching on, that it doesn't have to just be a module-based set of learnings that we're all doing to upskill ourselves. I think the world is changing so rapidly that we need to keep nourishing ourselves internally and externally with all kinds of different ways of developing.
That's so neat. And the chat's blowing up as Stephanie and Sean are talking about this. Rocky, we've heard 6 or 7 really great things, but I know there's another 60 or 70 that you've seen out there? What are the top 3 or 4 that you're going to recommend?
Well, first of all, I'm loving all these days at IBM. Within our marketing organization, we have something called Focus Fridays. It's very similar, but it's not as cool as getting acupuncture for free. But we encourage people to take a half day on Fridays to focus on their career development and investing in trainings and things like that. But to answer your question, I mean, you had specifically asked about how do we get more women in the door. This is an area that I'm particularly passionate about for a couple of reasons. First of all, personally, I myself fell into sales like many women. I was not targeting a profession in sales. I had applied for a marketing position. And it was a recruiter who put me in the queue for sales. And I remember at the time I thought, oh my gosh, I would never be successful in sales. I don't have the personality for it. It's so masculine. It's so competitive, so aggressive. But I kind of went with it, and lo and behold, the recruiter was right. I absolutely loved it. I was doing very well in it. It can be a very lucrative profession. So there's a lot of benefits to sales. But unfortunately, sales has a masculine connotation. So we have to take extra measures as companies and as leaders to ensure that we're trying to get more women in the door. So a couple of things that I've personally found to be successful. I think the first one starts even as simple as your job descriptions. You got to really redline your job descriptions, make sure that you're eliminating any masculine language. You'd be surprised if you do a Google search right now, you will probably see many sales job descriptions that specify that they're looking for people with a competitive sports background, for example. I personally can barely throw a ball, much less catch one. If I had seen that on a job description, I probably wouldn't have applied for a sales role. So that's one action.
Rocky, I've heard that there's also words like get ready to crush quota.
Oh, totally. The killer sale, crush quota, all those things. I mean, you hear so much of that. And it's not just the job description, it's also eliminating it from your actual work environment once people are there.
So I grew up in sales as well, and I was the only girl. So then when I was hiring, that was my job description. I learned that from Girls Club. Even though I'm the head of this organization, my job posts and descriptions were super masculine. So there are actually, there are services that you can find that will check it for you, or you just give it to 10 women on your team and say, what would turn off most of your friends? But if you haven't checked it, it's probably pretty masculine.
For sure.
Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to say how easy it is to make that mistake.
No, absolutely. And I think it's really unintentional, but you have to be really intentional about the verbiage that you're using. And that's a simple fix. Another suggestion is recruiting from non-traditional sources. That's one of the biggest mistakes companies make. Obviously, places like Girls Club would be a great place to find people. But unfortunately, a lot of people go to the top tier Ivy League schools. They look for people who are on sports teams. I found that some of the best sales hires I've ever made are people who came from some of those non-traditional paths. So HR recruiters, for example, or real estate agents, those are very good sales types of experiences. Even military, they have a strong sense of camaraderie, teaming, relentlessness, perseverance. So those are some of the things that you can do. And then also even more simple things. Make sure you have women on the hiring panel. Once again, as Sean said, if you can't see it, you can't be it. If you're interviewing with 4 different men, you're not going to feel like this is a place you can succeed. And even your careers website, do you have just pictures of men or just white men or just white women? You want to make sure that you're showcasing an overall inclusive environment. And that can be as simple as just the picture you have on your website.
100%. And, when I came up in sales, I was used to being surrounded by men. I never would have thought of researching that. But through 3 years of Girls Club, every year they're telling me, oh yeah, well, the first thing I do is check the website, right? And of course, Glassdoor and other places. But if you don't have any women in your leadership team, just take the picture down for now until you can fix it, because they are checking 100%. Rocky, I love hiring teachers and working moms. A working mom can get more done before 10 a.m. than pretty much any other human in the world, which is, I think, sexist and also in the wrong way. Sorry, everybody, but there you go. I'm just impressed by working moms. All right, let's crowdsource. Stephanie, and what else do you want to go back in and add? What attracts people to the company? Erica, you too. I know I cut you guys off because you had long lists.
I think one of the things that can attract people to the company too is, and I think a lot of companies forget about this. If you are doing positive things, talk about it, share it on Glassdoor, share it on your website, share it on your social media, because we're in such an age where we will go down the cyber stalking rabbit hole on anything and look things up. You have to make sure that whatever you're doing is talked about, so that when you're looking at it's not generic. Because if it doesn't appear like there are initiatives and you're not sharing them, then nobody will know you did. Like the acupuncture, which is great. And we have a deal on Fridays that you block off your Fridays so you can't get meeting endeavor every Friday, and it's supposed to be time for you to catch up on all the stuff you have to do. So I understand taking the time, but if you don't talk about that you have that there, nobody will ever know that that's a feature. And people don't look for what is just the pay. They look for what is the work environment, what are the managers like, what is that like, because that's what makes people stay. So if they don't know what the work environment is like and you're not sharing that, then they're not going to necessarily apply.
You're so right. I'm thinking about the last few initiatives we've done at my companies, and right, I don't have that anywhere. Like we usually send client gifts, but instead we donated to food banks. I should talk about that somewhere. That makes a difference in the culture. And so is it a blog? Is it on the hiring site? Is it on the LinkedIn page? What's your advice?
Yes. So
yeah, which is why we haven't done it. I just heard bandwidth. But if it's important, we need to do it.
The thing is, you're doing it. When you go to donate to a food bank, you're doing an action. Snap a picture, post it up on your social media. We do have, obviously a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, a blog, because that's how everybody communicates differently, and they have to choose. We haven't gone down the entire TikTok route, but we do these things. We have a YouTube channel, so that when something's done, snap a picture of it, show it, and talk about it. Even just on LinkedIn, tell the story about what's happening. Because when you Google, and hashtags are kind of cool for this, I'm just going to say it, and I know not everybody loves it, but if there's a similar hashtag you can promote about your company, then you'll show it. But remember that you almost have to go, I'm doing the action, now take a picture of the action, write a little blurb about the action.
Hashtag powerful. Thank you. Stephanie.
I think just echoing what you were saying, Erica, that there's a lot of good things that happen within the company. There's things that happen within your teams, but especially now with everyone remote, you need to let people know about the good things that are going on. A couple of my coworkers and I, we did a podcast club where we just took a podcast, the Abby Wambach podcast on Wolfpack, her book about women supporting women. And we did like a session where we all debriefed it like a book club. Share that with marketing, share that with recruiting, let everyone know all of the things so that they can use it when they post on social, when they talk to candidates, and like really show them the things that are happening behind the scenes that they maybe don't see with their eyes, or they just don't see on public Slack channels or anything.
We're not used to always sharing with recruiting and doing that, right? Like everybody who's a part of Girls Club, we give them a badge, right? Proud supporter of. But half the time when I talk to the recruiting company, they haven't gotten it yet. And like we do it for the recruiting teams to help. Yeah. Sean, I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point before we moved on, and I think this came up in the comments. I think it's really important to touch on the importance of intersectionality when talking about hiring women, particularly for women of color. One of the things that just like is deeply, deeply important to acknowledge is that especially coming out of the pandemic, Black women have come back into the workforce at a rate of half the rate of white women, right? And so creating an environment where there is psychological safety for example, folks within your companies feeling comfortable to refer folks to your company who wouldn't be set up for failure in your interview loop because they're screening for experience as opposed to screening for potential. And a lot of how, to your point, LB, recruiting sometimes lives in its own little box where they're trying to check off a bunch of things that they're told they should look for, when in fact the hiring manager, to points that folks have brought up on this call, may be looking for that experience with grit and adversity and curiosity, moms who get up and can juggle 6 things at once, right? Like folks who've been able to manage their own business while also managing a family can probably do really well in sales. And that's how we think about recruiting high potential applicants to FlockJ and partnering with lighthouses in the industry and companies who are looking to hire top tier sales talent. So I think that's just something that hopefully all those on the call can also take back to their companies and ensure that kind of safety exists.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, and correct me, okay, because this is, I may oversimplify, but Sean, I'm hearing recruit for attributes. recruit for behaviors, not for experience.
Yes.
Listen, we have to do that anyway. You guys, the hiring profile for sales that says 4-year college degree, played a competitive sport, it's over. It's over. We're growing too fast and unemployment is too low. They are not there anymore. If you want 2 years of sales experience, guess what? They're already done. The average lifespan of an SDR is 16 months. So we all have to shift towards attributes and behaviors and potential, which is why it's so critical we train them to then do the job. All too often, I feel like we're all competing for the same people and right. And then we're just throwing them into the deep end and seeing if they can swim.
Can I make a comment on job descriptions that I don't think a lot of people talk about?
I bet you're going to make the same one I was thinking. Go, girl.
Okay, so here's the interesting thing about job descriptions and job ads. Imagine you're on a dating website and you're building your perfect date. That is what a job ad is. You are building the perfect person that you would like to have show up, right? Nobody is ever that perfect. Nobody's that unicorn when they show up. So
we know it.
Yes. So the job ad, I think a lot of people are intimidated by a job ad and they see, oh, I need 4 years. Yes, in their beautiful world, they want somebody who has 4 years. The likelihood of running into and encountering that, very low. So a lot of times they let this be an intimidation for actually applying. Well, if you have a lot of the skill sets, I would even go so low as 60% of the skill sets on there and experience, and Sean can totally correct me if my number is off, but apply, because yes, we're looking for our ideal candidate, but the fact of the matter is it's a unicorn most of the time, and we're looking for somebody who ticks off a lot of the boxes.
Yes. That is the number one reason women are not applying to your jobs. Okay. This was the study out of HP that Forbes published. If there's 10 things on a job description, a man will apply if he has 6 out of the 10. What's the number for women? 10.
Yes.
There it is in the chat. 10. Don't post for the unicorn. I love how you talk about that in dating. Oh my God. My Match.com profile way back when.
Everybody describes their perfect other half. And I'm like, that is really cool. We don't have robots yet. So we're going to settle on a few points.
Wouldn't it be much better if we did, right? Funnily enough, my now husband was on Match the same time I was way back when. We lived 5 miles apart. He's literally my dream guy. And we were not matched together because I had unicorn out there. And so
if you had unicorn, but another thing that companies should be aware, people should be aware of when applying for companies is whether or not they're using an applicant tracking system. Because there is an unknown gatekeeper people don't realize. The applicant, see Sean shaking his head, and I'm sure he can talk to this point, is that what happens is they set up the job ad and they look for up to, and I think it's around 20 matches on your resume to keywords on that job ad. And if you don't get 20 to 25, you're not even getting to a hiring manager or recruiter. You're going to go into an automated dump out.
And I've read about this. There's some unintentional bias in there, right, Sean?
Yeah, it's huge. And we've kind of moved to this world where instead of actually physically submitting an application to a company, it's just out in the ether of the internet. And so it's really hard to stand out if your ATS is auto screening for these kind of pre-requirements that you think are predictive of job success, but are really, to Erica's points, really nice to haves and compounding nice to haves. And so it isn't a surprise that as a recruiter, if I'm logging into my ATS and I have a time to hire requirement and I just got 200 applications overnight, I'm going to click that sort button. I'm going to start calling back folks who have more of those requirements because everyone has finite amount of time in the day. But that's an artificial sorting mechanism. It's not actually getting you closer to what you want, which is potential, which is skills, which is attributes, which is someone who will succeed in the job. Yeah. So I think is completely right, and explicitly calling that out both in how you set up your ATS and how you write your job description will help invite a diversity of phone screens to even start your recruiting process.
Because it's all top of funnel, right? That's what we need to do right now as leaders, is fix top of funnel. My marketing director and Girls Club protege, Amy Wonderlick, in the chat says she came from recruiting background, and so few people know how to actually search through their ATS and find potential candidates that don't match the 100% criteria. So set it up differently, learn how to sort differently. If you are a leader, go talk to recruiting now about how that's set up so that you can widen the funnel at the top. All right, last comments about recruiting and attracting women. Stephanie and Rocky, who wants to add anything?
I will just add one thing. A friend of mine is actually applying right now, and I've been helping her source a couple of different companies to look for. And I came across one company where in the job description, they actually say, if you don't meet 100% of the qualifications, you should still apply. Studies show that even if you have 50%, you could still be hired, and we want you to apply. And I think doubling down and just saying that, that's going to draw people in, make people feel a lot more confident, and actually give like a lot more of a chance to people who maybe were more hesitant. So I think leading with that, it stood out to me, and I was like, you have to apply here. This is the type of company that really values that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well,
I love that.
I don't have an applicant tracking system at KnowBe4. I intentionally didn't do that. Just to throw that out there. One of our people, Alicia, it made a comment, but I intentionally didn't do that. And I think companies have an internal recruiting team and remove the applicant tracking system for being your funnel. Make recruiters be your funnel. That's my message out there. It's not tweak it, remove it, because you'll never see the people, because any filter you put on there is still a filter.
I love it. Rocky, any final words?
No, I'll just go back to the intersectionality comics. I think that's such an important piece of this. We know, especially in the past year through the pandemic, that it's really adversely affect marginalized groups much more than even white women, for example. And, there was actually a recent article by HBR. They said that without diverse leadership, women are 20% less likely to get endorsement for their ideas. People of color are 24% less likely. LGBTs are 21% less likely. So the more leadership that you have that are, people of color, that's going to make a huge difference in organizing the company that you want. But the reason why this matters is because we want to reflect our client base, right? Gone are the days where all of the decision makers at corporations are white men, for example. You have 25-year-old female CEOs who are starting their own companies. And so if you don't have people who are kind of reflecting your client base, how are you going to really sort of open up the aperture of who you're trying to sell to?
It's a perfect transition to the next question I had too, Rocky, which is what inspired this? So Erica and Stephanie, right? You've been on this campaign and you're winning lots of awards, and you got our top spots in the top 25. What inspired all the actions you've talked about to support and recruit more women? And has it worked? Stephanie, you look ready.
You want to go first?
Sure, I can go. I think we're very authentic in saying that we want to be better. Our executive leadership team talks a lot about all of the improvements that we want to make, the investments, and really making Iterable a place for women. A big focus this year is having more of the people that we hire from underrepresented groups. And we give a lot of transparency in every town hall or all hands that we have. We share how we're tracking against those key metrics. But in the last couple of years, we've been doing a lot of investments in different conferences, events, sponsorships, really with the focus on underrepresented candidates, including women. And last year, we saw 133% year-over-year growth in the number of applicants at the top of the funnel that identify as women. And I think the important thing, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, is it's not on recruiting only. This has to be a company initiative. It needs to be the leadership team. It needs to be the sales team, people who are referring within their network. It needs to be the managers, and then the first people that actually have conversations with candidates, making them feel like they belong. And so it's not just on recruiting, it has to be across the board.
That's so true. I really like the transparency of here's the goal we set and how we're doing against it. Girls Club this year, we set a goal to have more diversity in our protege group, but I was too chicken to publish the goal, because what if we didn't hit it? And I will tell you something, we did better, but we didn't hit it. Right? But I can do better. I can be more transparent. And I've learned new ways to go and do that. But it was a slog. I get it. Leaders out there who are saying, I'm trying really hard. Tell me more places to go. And Sean, we're going to give you a chance to speak to that in just a minute. In the meantime, Erica, what inspired Know Before to go down this path, and how are you doing against it?
I think it has been a core thing since Stu started the company, like, to do this. And we were very fortunate. Our 50% female happened naturally, which was great. But we have to, I'm a firm believer that you constantly have to decide and talk about any situation, educate around it, and find out how you get to that goal. Because to your point of setting a goal and not necessarily quite achieving that goal, but is putting in all the steps necessary to get there, but not only get buy-in from executives, our employee relations groups are our employees, and their committees are employees, and we not want to know from them how we can make a difference. What are the changes we can do? And then listen and do those things that they talk about. Because one of the things that sometimes drives me nuts at companies is they'll do surveys on their employees or specific groups of their employees, and like 9 months later, like you could have already had a child, 9 months later, some result comes from it that's not even close to the result the employees thought should come from that survey. And it's, if your employees feel like they're listened to and they can help affect changes, it makes a big difference.
It's so true. That's a super easy action item right now. Everybody just go and ask, right?
Yeah.
Help start the groups and then ask.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That's really good. So I've got to ask, Rocky, I'm going to go to you, and then Sean, is it unusual to find companies like Iterable and Know Before who have thrown the kitchen sink at this? Paint us a picture of an average company.
I would say it's not unusual, but I do see varying levels of interest, commitments, and action on the topics depending on the company. So going back to your comment, LB, I mean, it really, I think, matters whether or not you actually are a company who's committing to action and making it a business priority, just like anything else. So you're treating diversity like that. You have measurable goals, KPIs, management systems. You're making it a core part of your leadership performance checks. And I don't think it's always easy. It's not always comfortable, but that's kind of what it takes. And a big piece of that is being transparent about where you're at in the journey. I'm really proud to say that at IBM, we publicly publish our diversity statistics, and that's a really important way to be transparent about where you're at in the journey, hold yourself accountable, and then also hold other peers in the industry accountable too. So I found that some of the companies that do have some more of those robust programs in place, who are actually tying their executive bonuses and compensation to diversity metrics, those are some of the ones that are moving the needle a little bit more.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think it just kind of varies across the company, because some do a great job on the front end of the process with recruiting and attraction, all of the ideas and suggestions that we just gave, but then they fall short in terms of actually, keeping people there. So once they get there, the women aren't recognized, they're not paid fairly, they're not supported, there's no career development programs for them. Similarly, some companies do a great job on retaining, but they're not doing a good job on advancement. So none of the women are actually moving up. They're not getting promoted. There's no programs for them that are helping them reach their potential. So that's why I think it's so important. I think a lot of companies, the average company, probably has a little bit of a piece of each of those puzzles. But you kind of have to look at the full end-to-end process from a recruit, attract, advance perspective to make sure that you actually not only are getting women in the door, but fostering an environment where they can thrive and succeed when they get there.
I love it. I really love it. So if you're an executive who has been sent this webinar and the year is 2024, I'm pretty sure it's still going to be applicable. Okay. So step one is make it an executive level initiative. Put some goals around it, talk about it in executive meetings, set company annual goals, and maybe even tie some incentives to it. And two, if you're trying to figure out where to start a little bit in each one of these categories instead of tripling down in recruiting and then having a hole in the boat. So really two great places to start for leaders. And that's where we're going to make the biggest difference when it's at the leader level. Awesome, Rocky. Thank you. Sean, you work with tons of companies who are coming to you to help them fix this. What's the average company look like, and what's your advice?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that I've just noticed since starting the company is that, all of us are works in progress and all of us want to do the right thing. And I think all of us are also really trained to be goal oriented. And I think the really important thing to remember when we talk about inclusion and inclusive based hiring is this is a values discussion. This isn't just a goals discussion. Lots of companies may fall into the trap of saying, hey, here's the signpost, here's the input. Let's drive the whole ship to maximize or optimize this, signpost, hit that target and move on. But inclusion is an output. It's an output of really living your values, and to the points we're discussing, ingraining inclusion and inclusive hiring and promotions throughout the company. And I think if we're looking for any kind of sustainable change, like those values that you have on your door when you walk into your company don't mean much if you're not baking in inclusion into them. And so that's one of the things that I've noticed, and that's why companies partner with FlockJ, is they recognize that they want to deeply ingrain inclusive hiring into the DNA of the company, not just hit some industry benchmark and then call it a day and call it success, because it is a continuous work in progress and it is a continuous value. So I think that is something that we've noticed in how we've built the company. Like Erica, our workforce is over 50% female or non-binary identifying, and that happened organically, and we still have lots of work to do. So I think just acknowledging that we're all works in progress, and this is just a value we're going to come back to, is how we partner with companies. And it starts with hiring folks who will be future leaders of your company.
I love that. By the way, I got a shout out again to Iterable, who has growth mindset as a company value. I freaking love that. That's on like my family values, but I hadn't thought about bringing it to saying that at work. And it goes into what you're saying, Sean, that it's okay to learn out loud. I just want to I got to give Girls Club a shout out. Our program director, Angela Salazar, is amazing, had this fabulous idea this year, because we're really focused on better diversity, to have fireside chats. Stephanie, did you go to that first fireside chat?
I didn't make that one, but I think I watched the recording.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was amazing. So the first one we were talking about race, and the second one we're talking about gender identity. And the idea is a really safe place to ask questions if you're not sure how it's supposed to work. Okay. So Sean, as you talk about people who identify as female, or if you don't identify, or as non-binary, there's a huge percentage of the audience that doesn't understand that language. And I will tell you, I'm just getting there, and I screw it up. And because I screw it up, it makes me afraid to say it and screw it up. And so we had this fireside chat so that we could ask questions, right? One of the very first questions, this gorgeous panel, one of the first questions asked was, am I supposed to say Black, colored, or African-American? I just don't know. Right. And it was hilarious, because these women were like, hey, listen, we don't always get the memo either, but I've polled a lot of people, and here's what we came back with. And making it a safe place to screw up is okay. If you're afraid to take on this initiative because you don't know what Sean just meant by non-binary, you don't have to go hire somebody and wait for a massive initiative. Google it and then make it a safe place to learn out loud. And say, I don't always get this. I'm old, and I'm really excited about embracing it. Who in the company can help me? And just that transparency and authenticity will go such a long ways in helping your company get there where you need to be to represent your buyers in the next 20 years. So thank you for letting me step on that soapbox. And now I'm coming off. Stephanie, next question I'm going to send over to you. I love that you are hanging with this panel of C-level executives in Fortune 1000, and Stephanie's a sales rep, okay? And this whole thing was her idea, and she's making stuff happen. But I want to hear it from the recruit's point of view, because what we're all listening to this webinar for is to get more of you to apply. What should we know?
So I have three things. I think for leaders, a good takeaway is when I'm considering a new company, one of the first things I do is I go on LinkedIn, I look up the CRO, the VP of sales, and it shows you people that report to them. And I look, are there female managers that report directly to them? The second is, if you are in the interview process and you're joining a team that maybe doesn't have a lot of women, or they do, is the manager actually talking to you about that? I think vulnerability and saying, we know that we don't have enough women on our team right now. We want to hire you because of X, Y, and Z, but this is a top priority. That really matters to candidates. And that's part of the reason I joined Iterable. Was my manager, Ian, was very transparent about that during the interview process. He's like, I think that women are really good salespeople. This is my goal. And it was a really good conversation where I felt comfortable. And then the last, and this is for actual people that are interviewing at jobs, is I look for collaboration. A lot of sales teams historically have people that are really out for themselves or have sharp elbows, or managers that like manage based off of fear. The questions to ask in the interview for me is always, how do you collaborate? What resources do the teams share? How do you celebrate wins? Do you celebrate alone or do you celebrate as a team? For me, that's really important in understanding the team dynamic and how everyone interacts with each other.
Candidates, interview your potential company for sharp elbows. Gorgeous. Yeah. That's a tweetable moment. Well done. Thank you. Stephanie, I'm going to keep you on the hook for a second and then ask everybody else to come in as well. What can other individual contributors like you do at their companies to help inspire more diversity? So if you're listening to this and you're an AE or a BDR, like Stephanie, and you work for a company who may or may not get it, like the lovely lady who chatted in earlier, please, for God's sakes, get this webinar to my CEO. What can you do to inspire up? Stephanie, you go first, and then I'm going to go to Sean.
Yep. So in my most recent promotion, I joined a team that was primarily men. And so I went to our head of recruiting, Melanie, and I said, I want you to know that anything you need from me, when you have a female that you're talking to, like a candidate, I will do the second call. I will do the third call. I will be there on every panel, regardless if it's my team or another team. I want women to feel like they belong here. And if we don't have a lot of women on the panel, like I will be that person, and I will help not only talk to the candidates, but help within internal conversations on a candidate, being an advocate for them if I think that they're the right fit.
We can all do that. I never thought of that before. Massive girls club, take note.
And then the next is what I mentioned earlier. If you're doing good stuff with your team, tell the recruiters about it. Allow them to have stories to tell to females when they're talking to people throughout the process about, here are some of the things that we're doing. They don't always know about a lot of the stuff that happens in team meetings. They don't know if you have a process of echoing other women in meetings. They want to know that so they can share it to candidates and give them that authentic experience.
Good. Really, really good. Love it. Sean.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think it's amazing to put yourself into that position to help that process. I also want to encourage folks not to feel like you have to do all the labor too, and to use your company's budget to bring in help. And I want to highlight a story that just happened this week. So these two amazing women from Gartner heard about FlockJ on LinkedIn and reached out to myself and Megan Allen, who's a Girls Club member, and said, hey, like, we don't have the resources ourselves to do this, but we love what you're doing and we know our company cares about this. We want to talk and we will champion you and we will bring you in. Can you hop on a call with us? And when I saw that message, that just made me so happy, because there's a balance between putting yourself on the front lines, but also ensuring that your company is doing the work and putting their money where their mouth is. And so that's why FlockJ and other companies like us exist, because you're not alone. You don't have to do all this work yourself internally. And we had this amazing conversation, and where it left is like, hey, we're going to bring you to our VP of sales. And it would be a tragic shame if like this doesn't go forward, and we're going to make sure it goes forward. So I think
companies come to FlockJ because they want more diversity in recruiting. There are resources out there. You don't have to fix it yourself. Lori Richardson and Women's Sales Pros also helps train companies who are trying to do a better job of not just the hiring, but the retaining and promoting. So 2 resources you can start with. If anybody else has additional resources, I hope you'll put them into chat and we'll share those in the follow-up email. Sean, thank you for reminding us of that. If it's important to you and you don't hold the purse strings, go find who does, right? And introduce the right people to them. Erica and Rocky, anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to add this. Every person on this call has a voice. You have to be willing to say things. You have to be willing to share your ideas. You have to be persistent. If you are hoping somebody is going to notice something's happening and that you're doing great or something needs to be changed, that is not going to happen. You have to speak. So it doesn't matter what size organization you're in. Find the people who are responsible for it. You can even find them on LinkedIn if you can't find them on your internal structure. I've seen some of the internal structures for very big companies, hard to find people. But find the right person and message it. And if that message, find the next person. Keep going, because there are so many brilliant ideas and so many little ways to change things that every person sees. But if you're hoping somebody comes and taps you on the shoulder and go, tell me your brilliant idea so I can execute on it, that's not going to happen. You have to be loud, and you have to be unafraid of the consequences of communicating. Because if you're in a place that goes against you for communicating, you're in the wrong place. Call Flock J. They will help you find a job. You're in the absolute wrong place if you have any sort of belittlement for communicating. But sometimes you have to say it over and over again, and then people will listen.
Hallelujah. That's gorgeous. It goes right to the last point I want to make. But before I do it, Rocky,
No,
one last thing nobody's heard yet that you
Oh.
want to make sure we do here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say call out bad behavior. You know, we have a huge opportunity to do that. I know it's not easy. We have to develop our confidence, but when you're in instances where, you know, people are saying things to you or treating you a certain way, we've got to start making people be accountable and capitalize on this moment in time. I think never before has there been more on our side. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to drive more awareness and to get people involved, especially our male allies, for example. I mean, the reality is, unfortunately, men have contributed to the problem for decades. We're not really going to be able to move the needle without their genuine support. And again, we can go back to making it a business priority, but as Sean had said, you know, it's not just about that. It's really a values-based discussion. I think of a quote by Ginny Rometty, who is the former CEO of IBM. She said, diversity is a metric, inclusion is a choice. And I love that quote because it really goes to show, you know, this is really about it being the right thing to do and how do you win the hearts and minds of people. There are going to be many people who just aren't on board, but for the onesie twosies that are, make sure that you really milk them for all that they're worth, have them out there fighting that fight. And that's how we're really going to drive change.
I love that. It really goes to what Sean was saying, doesn't it? About it being a value. And that is critical. So I want to underline what Rocky said. Ladies, we own a lot of this. Okay. We do. These are actions that we can take. Go and have career discussions. Go ask for training and development, for mentors, for higher level projects, right? Recognize your own perfectionism and your unwillingness to raise your hand unless you have all 10, and take a risk at 5 instead. And of course, encourage your girlfriends, because I think encouragement is the magic button that gets all of us to move forward. I'd like to speak to my male leaders out there. There's so many who want to do something, but don't know what to do. Pick 1 or 2 things here and put them into action. And underlining Rocky's point, when something happens that makes you uncomfortable, I don't think there's a lot of people out there truly that start their day by saying, hey, I really want to make somebody feel unincluded and horrible about themselves today. So let's go about this with some grace at all levels. And when somebody does something that makes you uncomfortable, it doesn't mean you've got to, sue them. It means you need to teach them and to talk about it and to not be afraid for that. Now is the time to do that. If you've enjoyed this and you think your company's fantastic, make sure that everybody knows about it by voting for your company right now. wearegirlsclub.com/vote. You will get an early jump on this. Thank you one more time to this amazing panel. Look at this. Every single one of these amazing companies is hiring, and the websites are there right now where you can go be part of them. Panelists, thank you so much for joining. This hour went by super fast, and I have 20 new tips myself for how I can do this better. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time.